Well, greetings, everyone. This is Danny Knox from Parallels Software. Hope everyone is doing well today. It's now time for the Parallels Mac Management for Microsoft Endpoint Management version 9 deep dive demo. We're going to be looking at a lot of ways that you can take the existing Microsoft infrastructure that you already have, that you manage your Windows endpoints in, and add our plugin that gives you a lot of the same workflows that are native to Configuration Manager but lend themselves to Mac management. So if you're looking for ways to keep things pretty much the same across your infrastructure without having to add a lot of additional infrastructure, a lot of support teams, and so everything that goes along with Mac management, that's where we come in. We help you figure out that last mile of Mac management. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Version 9 just released a couple of weeks ago, so we're going to look at a couple of slides for things that I can't actually demonstrate because it requires additional setups that can't be shown on the screen. But then we will be going into virtual machines that you can see everything that you'll be able to do with the rest of Parallels Mac Management. So deep dive demo, 300 level. If you have questions, comments, concerns, throw those into the QA or chat window. And I'll get to those at the very end. So I'll be going pretty quickly, trying to meet the hour deadline. Hopefully we'll get there, but we'll see. Just one of those things, right? All right, so let's get started. Where are we with Parallels, right? We're in a lot of different places. We're global, we're around the world. So you can find us in a lot of the major countries around the world, but as far as what we do, we bring cross-platform enablement for a lot of the things that we need to do within an infrastructure. Of course, way back when, Parallels Desktop for Mac. That's what we brought to the market for folks that were looking for ways of running Windows on a Mac. Well, that's turned into over 100 different operating systems we can now run on a Mac. So a very powerful way to keep on a Mac without having to reboot it, drag, drop, cut, paste, very tight integration. A lot of developers really like that platform because they can spin up multiple operating systems across Windows or Linux, different distribution distros, and then go to each of those windows, those operating systems, and utilize their development tools. So great kind of a Swiss Army knife for operating systems. A relatively new one for us, Parallels Desktop for Chrome OS Enterprise. If you're looking for ways in your classrooms, even in enterprise, looking for ways of standardizing on maybe a small laptop Chrome box. We cut across a lot of the vendors, from HP, Lenovo, Dell, that have Chrome notebooks that can be used, or as I mentioned, Chromebox as well. You need to run Windows on those devices. That gives you a lot of flexibility for using a very nice operating system from Google, being Chrome OS, and then utilizing Parallels Desktop and running Windows, right? It's actually baked into the operating system, into Chrome OS. You buy licenses and you can manage this out on the Google admin console, and very rich and deep administrative experience. This is for the enterprise or the school that is looking for centralized management of an operating system that can be fully managed from a web or cloud-based infrastructure. Parallels Access, that is our consumer product for getting to any one of your devices, whether it's a laptop, desktop, doesn't have to be a Mac. We can get to those from a web login, and then you can do what you need to do from a remote standpoint. Now, again, that's focused at the consumer area for ease of use of getting to different things. I would strongly suggest you take a look at the next one, Parallels Remote Application Server, or RAS, right? It's an all-in-one remote application and desktop delivery system. So if you're thinking, well, that sounds like maybe Citrix. Well, we do compete in the same space, but less complexity, less cost. So we build into it everything that you would have to purchase all a carte, right? Separate things. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't buy that. Yeah, now you do, right? Well, no, not with the parallel solution. You get a full featured, capability standing on top of, RDS and, all the different, Microsoft and other hypervisors as well, right? So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to hypervisors, but you do get that capability of any form factor delivering an app or a desktop to a laptop, desktop, thin term, iOS, iPad OS, Android, a lot of different ways to get that content out to anybody that needs it, right? And these days of working from home, we're starting to open up some offices, but majority of folks are still working from a remote location. This gives you the flexibility of supporting both. So I definitely take a look at that. And then if at the very end of it, Parallels Toolbox, it's a compilation of a lot of the utilities that you kind of have to hunt around for on your Mac or your Windows device, right? If you're looking for cut and paste and audio, video, recording, screen sizing, a lot more than that, right? But it's a utility that gets put onto the toolbar down near the notification tray, and it's a really nice, as I mentioned, collection of utilities in one place, right? Then right here towards the far end, that's Parallels Mac Management, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So I'll move along here. I don't want to kill you with too many slides. We do have a few, but not that many. So I hope you do well here. All right, so version 9 just released not that long ago. So I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe that. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. There we go. Thank you. Right. So we have been around for a while doing this. We did just roll up with the trailer, right? And we've put out a card table. We're going to be gone tomorrow. No, we've been doing this a long time. So bringing to market here, we've got a new powerful configuration profile editor. So if you've done any MDM work on the Mac, there's lots of ways to get policy out to a Mac. We've added one into Configuration Manager, so you don't have to go outside of Configuration Manager to make this work. User-initiated MDM enrollment for Mac devices. We've had an MDM for, oh gosh, going on 6 years, maybe now 7 years, when we brought DEP, device enrollment, Apple's onboarding of a zero-touch enrollment process. So we've, over the years, been advancing our MDM with new features to take advantage of a lot of the Mac enforcement. And we tie that to Configuration Manager. So again, you don't have to go somewhere else. I think you'll start to see today that we're going to synergize, put into Configuration Manager a lot of the things that you would have to go out and find, maybe a website or another console. No, we bring that all into Configuration Manager. Volume purchase program, we've now added that for mobile devices. Well, not just the Mac, but iOS and iPad OS, right? So if you have a volume license a token, we can add that to Configuration Manager. DEP enrollment for Apple mobile devices, just talked about that. User account configuration during DEP enrollment. So during that process of getting a Mac onboarded, actually prior to that, you can set up if you want to deliver an administrative or configure an administrative account, an admin account, or maybe a user account. So we can add that to the device enrollment process. So it's ready to go with that, with those profiles. Ability to edit DEP profiles. DEP profiles were kind of static. So we now have the ability to give a lot of editing to those, a lot of different features you can add to those. You may have a what if scenario, and this will really help with that. Automatic assignment of DEP profiles to new devices. So we've got that all automated. You don't have to do onesie twosie kind of thing. We can throw that at collections. Executing task sequences during DEP enrollment process. That's kind of cool if you really think about what task sequences actually do in Configuration Manager. We have the ability to use non-OSD task sequences where we're not deploying an operating system, but we can deliver apps, packages, mobile config files, scripts, variables. A lot of things can be added there and during that process with those task sequences. Then installing configuration profiles during the DEP enrollment process. So that's a game changer where you can add basically anything that you can manage a Mac with as far as mobile config files go, and do that at the device enrollment process. Normally when a Mac hits a collection, that's where we deliver policy mobile config files. So this is a pretty nice thing to have there. All right, so here's some of the things that we actually won't be able to see during the demo today when I jump into SCCM. So here's an enrollment profile for mobile devices. So this would be an iPad OS or iOS. So you can get those fully configured. A lot of different settings along the lines of delivering configuration profiles and MDM profile. And then also the general tab with a lot of the things administrators need to take care of. Task sequence. So we can point to ones that we've already built. So this isn't the task sequence editor. This is where you would browse and find an already configured or built task sequence that you want to deploy during the DEP enrollment process. Here we go. For this is installing configuration profiles during DEP enrollment. And again, we can, we're in this instance, we're delivering a basic compliance settings configuration item that we've already built out. And we've just pulled it back into this screen. DEP enrollment for Apple mobile devices. I think this might be a duplication of another screen because it looks exactly the same. So I'm just going to move along here. Automatic assignment of DEP, default DEP profiles to new devices. So here we are in Configuration Manager, and then we're in the device enrollment program or DEP area. And then we've gone down to enrollment profiles down on the left here. And then we can see here that we're going to be able to deploy these out to new devices. So this will be targeted to any new device that comes into the environment, right? So the DEP process, if you're not aware, you buy a Mac from your hardware reseller as DEP enabled. That just means that it's going to be aware or looking for instructions for itself to be set up. So once it does connect on your network, it's going to want to home or find where are the resources. And so this will make that connection and give it the policy and the management perspective utilizing DEP and the new device profiles that we have. User account configuration. This is a really nice one, setting up either administrative account, standard account, or just skip it outright. So you can get that created at the time of device enrollment. And this is one of the big ones for version 9. We've added the iMazing profile editor. iMazing is a company that has a lot of Mac tools that you can, Mac and iOS actually, that you can get things configured and then add policy. Well, where do you do that? How do you enforce it? This is how you build it. This is everything behind the icons on the left-hand side are XML files, right? That through the drop downs and the check boxes and the random, these kind of text areas you can type things in that will then turn into a mobile config file that you can deploy out to Macs. And I'll show you what that looks like once we jump into the demo. All right, a little bit more information and we're almost ready to get into the demo. Sorry about all the slide stuff we have to get through. So Parallels Mac Management on Big Sur was a 0-day release for us, right? So we've got that all the way into the next version, which will happen September, October, we hope. It depends on Apple. And then we will be marching, since this last June, right? Beginning of June, here we are at the end of it. When Apple had their worldwide developer conference, we got the developer betas for Mac OS. So we've been working on that. And we'll, march with all the different updates they'll give us all the way up into the fall. And then we'll more than likely have another 0-day release where it's ready to go the day that Apple announces the next operating system, which is Monterey. M1 support came in V9. So if you have M1 devices, we fully support that with our agent and then are able to manage it. Intel chipset on Macs are still in the pipeline, probably starting to wane, right? We're starting to get to the end of those Intel chipsets, but they're still there. So it's not dead, right? So M1 is the big thing. That's the direction Apple wants to go with the system on a chip or SoC, where everything is combined. You got RAM, GPU, CPU, all on a single chip. So that's why they have, lots of speed and very robust experience. So Intel isn't dead yet. it could be two or three more years of support for Apple and Intel, because once you buy a Mac with an Intel chipset on it, it still has Apple Care that Apple will honor, right? So there's going to be this crossover period where support is there for both of them, and we will do the same at Parallels. All right, a little bit of talk around this before we jump into the demo. This is how we support an off-prem management of Macs. This is the way we give a Mac full support. And somebody's working from home, they open up the Mac, they're at the kitchen table, and they're doing their work, and they have HTTPS 443 connectivity with our agent back into the DMZ, where we have a management point and a distribution point, two roles out of Configuration Manager that we put in there. Then we also utilize IIS. And again, think of all this infrastructure, right? We're not asking you to stand up Tomcat for, instead of IIS and SQLite on a Mac Mini. We're going to utilize your Sitecode DB, all the management and distribution that Configuration Manager does natively. So if you're a Microsoft shop, that's what we're going to do. So this is a Microsoft way of managing an external Mac, right? So inside the DMZ is our IBCM MDM proxy on IIS. So that gives us the ability to synchronize out of the primary site right here all the information that fully manages an on-prem Mac. We put that into the DMZ, so that way external Mac devices can only go this far into the DMZ. That gives them applications, packages, policy enforcement, software updates, everything that an on-prem Mac would get, they can have off-prem. So you get a fully managed endpoint being a Mac device. So that's how we manage those Mac devices that may not be coming back on-prem. All right, demo time. All right, let's see if I can, let's see, not there yet. Let's go right here. There we go. Now we're into Configuration Manager. And hopefully everybody can see that, and we'll continue here. All right, let's get down into administration, and we'll start there. This area with the Parallels logo icon there, we call those extensions. Anything that we've added to Configuration Manager may have some branding, some color, some icons. So when you do an install with Parallels device management, then you can see all the resources that you'd need to manage your Macs. You can take our extensions, just the extensions, to a laptop or desktop if you're working from home, right? If you've maybe got a VPN and you're remoting in and you need to manage everything, not only the Windows devices, but the Mac devices as well, then our extensions can be added, and then you can see and manage your Mac fleet that you have. All right, so we're going to be looking at how do Macs come in? Where do we find them? How do we get them into management? So we're going to be looking at kind of the architectural things here at the beginning, and then we'll look at how we actually can see Macs. Where do they show up? How do we deploy things to them? How do we enforce policy? We actually can do thin imaging, kind of an MDT style. We won't be talking much about that because Apple's pretty much depreciated any way of doing an enterprise image deployment. They really don't want you doing that. They would like you to use the device enrollment program. You can get an installer, but it can't be made you can't Pixie boot it. So you really don't have an MDT style of imaging anymore. Now we can do this up to Catalina, but once we get into Big Sur, it no longer works. So going forward from Big Sur into Monterey into whatever Apple comes out with next, no more imaging. They really want you to use kind of this this management process, of get a device from the hardware reseller, get DEP, and then all that management, life cycle management will take place at that point. Okay. All right, let's start off here with discovery methods. So we need to find Macs. A couple of ways we can do that. We'll just start off with network discovery. Using your boundaries and your boundary groups that are already established in Configuration Manager, you can select the boundary groups and then below it'll show us the actual boundaries, right? So if you've got different geographic locations, different buildings, floors, labs, classrooms, if this is a school, maybe you've got, different music or, art labs or, whatever, the discipline might be. You probably will have a subnet for that. You just check a box, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to scan every IP address within that boundary. And we're looking for a Mac fingerprint, hardware and software that identifies itself as being a Mac. If we can figure that out, then we'll do a silent install of our agent. No notice to the end user, no reboot. It'll enroll into Configuration Manager, show up in a collection. Does a full inventory, which goes into your Sitecode DB because it's the same stuff. I didn't know if you knew that or not, right? It is the same stuff. There's hardware and software that we can take off the Mac and put into the same table structure without any schema changes. So that lends itself to reports that you can run under monitoring and reporting. You can use SQL queries that you build. You can create reports if you don't want to use the ones that are built into the reporting structure inside of Configuration Manager. So again, we are a very tight integration into what you already have. All right, so that's what we do for a network discovery. Well, what about Active Directory, right? That's pretty pervasive in our Windows environments. Actually, we want to go to Hierarchy and Discovery Methods and Active Directory System Discovery. You probably already have this configured for Windows devices, right? You've got, a couple of, OUs maybe that you're discovering devices to get maybe the Configuration Manager endpoint, agent installed to. So let's browse into Active Directory and go to, looks like I have a little bit of, oh, there we go. Had a little bit of luck up there, sorry. Let's go to computers, and I've already built out someplace. No, I didn't. That's a different system. I'm just rebuilding the system for version 9, so I haven't actually put anything back here yet. So underneath computers, maybe I had a Mac collection, right? OU, excuse me. And so you can really create whatever OUs you need to have. As mentioned, if you are a school, maybe you've got different classrooms, different staff, teachers, administrators, whatever it might be. You could have OUs for all those devices to fit within. So basically just point to the OU, bring it back into perspective here. You can see I've got a couple already in here. So this could be, something else relating to a Mac. And once it's there, then it just falls in line with the SCCM Active Directory policy, going out there and checking, every so often to figure out if there's a Mac in there. If there is, it's the same thing as the network discovery. Silent install the agent, no notice to the end user, no reboot. It'll enroll into Configuration Manager, does the full inventory, and then it's ready in a collection for you to find it and then do some additional things with it. Now, Macs do not have to be bound to Active Directory to be managed, right? You could use the network discovery that I showed first, and that would be sufficient. But if you are binding Macs to AD, this is a nice way to go. And a lot of times in a Windows organization, there'll be the Mac user that needs Windows resources. So that Mac will more than likely be manually bound to AD, where somebody gets them, in the IT workshop, right? Help desk will be in there. They unbox a Mac, put it on the bench. They take out the cut sheet, right? 50 things you have to do to get a Mac ready before you can give it to somebody. One of those things will be adding a Mac, binding it to AD. And then those devices will show up in the device node in Configuration Manager. And a lot of system administrators in Configuration Manager will create a collection just to move those out of there, right? They don't want to see them. They just want to push them over there. But those Macs are already bound to AD. So this makes it really easy. You simply come to System Discovery and point to the OU where those Macs might be already located. So pretty easy to do. So we've got Network Discovery and Active Directory System Discovery. Back down here. So maybe simply just want to install the agent manually. Maybe again, the Mac is on the IT workbench And help desk is there getting it set up, and you drop this URL on the Mac. Go to the browser of choice on the Mac, run that URL, pull it down. It'll go through about a 6-step next, and then it's done. Then it'll ask to be enrolled into Configuration Manager with credentials. Anybody can enroll a device into Configuration Manager. Then the agent will show up underneath system preferences. So this will give you a way, maybe you build an IT web page, right? And you click on the link when you're on the Mac that you want to put the agent on, or maybe you deliver this over instant messenger, something like that. All right, so that's a manual way to get the agent on. Then we've got areas here where we can configure mobile device management. It has to be used going forward with Big Sur. Monterey will require it. Subsequent operating systems from Mac OS will require an MDM. So there's no getting out of it. If you want to have any Mac management, you have to have an MDM. We simply attach it to Configuration Manager. So you get your management here as the console of choice being Configuration Manager, rather than standing up, as I mentioned, maybe Tomcat, right? SQLite on a Mac Mini, or someplace else, right? Your attention is usually focused here, and so we assist in that area. MDM service is another thing that gets configured with APNs and configuration signing, enrollment properties. So it's kind of a multi-part process. We can take care of getting a Mac completely enrolled on an MDM. Device Enrollment Program, DEP. That is needed in a lot of organizations that want to be as hands-off as they can be, right? They are just looking for ways to give somebody a device, and then in the background, the magic of DEP, device enrollment, will then give them a little bit of stand back, right? You don't have to be at the desk to do all the configurations, right? So a lot of configuration is happening here to get those DEP links and enrollment profiles all set up and ready to go. Let's see, I've got one here for mobile devices and then one for Mac computers. Let's see if we can look at properties on that. There we go. All right, so this one's already been set up. All right, this is the big one, user experience, right? When you open up a Mac for the first time, you get inundated with questions, and a lot of end users don't know, should I configure this? Is this something I'm supposed to do, right? So we're going to take the guesswork out of it. You set up the Mac the way that you want to present it to the end user. So that's what the user experience will give you, where maybe when they log in, the only thing they do is accept the policy and they get the desktop and they start working, right? They don't get all this stuff here that they're going to have to configure on their own, right? So this really takes the guesswork out of that user having to figure out, I'm not IT, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, right? They just want the Mac, right? And then here's where we can bring in additional profiles. Right, task sequences could be brought to bear. Install volume purchase program in this instance was selected. So really nice to have here, where we can set up administrative account, right? So we want administrators to be able to log in to do whatever they need to do. All right, so that's the enrollment profile area. Volume purchase program, talked a little bit about that. That's where you have a corporate Apple ID and token, and then you can get that configured for all the content that you buy from Apple. It can be delivered through application creation inside of Configuration Manager, right? So again, another place where you can do all your work for applications and packages. Volume purchase program utilizes the application model for right-clicking and creating a delivery of that content. All right, I think that's about it. IBCM, Internet-Based Client Management. So this is for off-prem devices, right? So we do a little bit of configuration at the install of the server, the Parallels Device Management Server, and then we do some configuration post-installation to kind of get the last bits going here. So that's what we're looking at right now. This is already, no, I don't have a IBCM setup on this one. So that's yet to be configured. All right, let's go up to assets and compliance. This is where we're going to be working out of today. Now, underneath devices, we've got our let's see here. Yeah, our All Mac OS 10 systems collection. That's where we're going to be heading. So there it is. And I'm going to right click on it so we can get a perspective um, that we are living in a Windows world here. So we go to membership rules and we're going to edit our main rule, and notice there's transact SQL, the same stuff that you use to find Windows device. You can edit. If I can do that, there I did. Let's see, show query language. We're going to scroll way the heck over here. Where clause, there we go. All right, wildcard like PMA, that's our Parallels Mac agent. So we're looking for some software in the database in the Sitecode DB. We're also looking for any version of Mac OS 10. With the spaces in there, that means that we're looking for Catalina and lower. Once you get to Big Sur, we have a new name, Mac OS, and it is kind of concatenated and tightened up there, no spaces. So with those three kind of, you know, discoverable pieces, we can bring in any Mac into Configuration Manager into the collection. So we're going to use SQL to do that. And that kind of tells you that you can build your own collections, right? Any attribute, you can use any of the app rules here and find software, find hardware, operating system, whatever that might be. You can build out your own collections. Maintenance windows, we can do these as well on a collection of Macs, same tab set here. So you can select days, times, hours, minutes, whatever that you would like to maybe push off any maybe possible reboots, right? We do have a SUP role, a software update point role for WSUS. So maybe you need to patch endpoints being Macs, but you don't want to do that during business hours. You can definitely offload that to maybe the same, maybe set this up exactly how you set your Windows maintenance windows, right? So you don't bug Mac users. That's the last thing you probably want to do is bug a Mac user. All right, so let's get into the collection. Let's go ahead and open that up. And a couple of devices here. And it's kind of interesting to see what they look like, right? You've got one here, well, we've got a good host name, and then we've got one with an IP address with underscores between the octets, right? So this one, we found a device, but we couldn't get much further than figuring out that it had an IP address. So that usually means that port 22 is closed, or maybe it didn't have an administrative account, so we couldn't actually do an install of our agent. So it does also report no client and no client activity. So we now have some information, right? If this is the first time you've ever done any Mac management and you just turn on Discovery, you'll find a lot of things you probably didn't know that you had in the way of Mac resources, right? Because a lot of times we think, oh yeah, I've got maybe 50, maybe 60, and once you do a discovery, you may find that you have over 100, maybe 150 devices that you had no idea. You may have some of those rogue Macs out there that yeah, you really need to bring back into endpoint management. So that's what we're going to be able to do, right? So this one, we got a lot further. We have a host name. We do have a client installed, so we were able to get an agent onto it, and it is active. Now, this was only stood up earlier yesterday, right? So I don't have Heartbeat and I don't have hardware scan. So those will be showing up later today based off of the policy cycle of Configuration Manager, which we fall in line with, right? So if you don't have to kick these off by yourself. You don't have to make this a manual process. We just fall in line with how Configuration Manager does, whatever you've set up, because Configuration Manager is a scheduling and automation tool, right? It's not a now tool. I think a lot of us have figured that out over the years of managing endpoints that, things get scheduled, they get queued up, and then they happen, right? And then, whatever, deploying apps, packages, policy, enforcement, discovery, remediation, all that stuff gets queued up. And then over time, you're going to see those values change. And that is falling in line with what Configuration Manager natively does. So you don't have to set anything up for that. All right, so let's take a look at a couple more features here. We do have right-click tools, right? So right-click on the device, and then we've got some things we can do with it. VNC is built in to the server here, so we can connect remotely to a desktop. This is for an administrator that needs to get on, do some work, under administrative profile, not a user's profile. You are not going to see the user moving his mouse or her mouse around on the screen. This is for the administrator to log in, do any work they need to do, get out, and then they're done. SSH is PuTTY that's built in, so you can get out to terminal, do any command line work that you need to do. And anything is really what I mean here. You can take any terminal command and remotely take somebody out of root down to standard user, um, reboot it, shut it down completely, change attributes on just about any aspect of that Mac. If there's a terminal command that you can run on the Mac in front of it, you can do it remotely here through a terminal window that you can establish. Machine policy and retrieval evaluation cycle is just like the Windows side of things in control panel for the configuration manager agent, right? So ad hoc, you can refresh policy and then make sure that those baselines are being enforced, right? Yeah, as administrators, systems administrators, you have that spidey sense, right? You can kind of figure, oh, wow, I think something's off here, and maybe you need to rerun some baselines. So that's what that'll do. Request inventory, you can pull it up. Maybe something's changed on the device, hasn't really come into configuration manager yet. This will do that right now. Executing scripts, Bash, Python, Ruby, terminal commands, basically any of the command um, um, kind of engines, right, that you can throw at a Mac. So scripting, Bash files, they're all here, Python. If you've built a script file, we can bring that in, push that out to a single Mac, or we can go up to the collection level and push a script out to all the devices, right? So if you need to do something now against every device, you can definitely do that. That's just from the file. If you need to just cut and paste, right, you can do that as well. Just, whatever it is, you just cut and paste it, put it right in there. And then we've got ways to run this with admin privileges. And then we can also use different accounts, right? Maybe you've got some administrative accounts, or maybe if the Mac is bound to AD, you want to utilize something that you can pull in. Maybe, you've got a Mac account that's got, higher rights than others, right? Then it's just a next and execute it, and it'll evaluate the device. If it can connect to it, it'll tell you pass or fail, right? And as I mentioned, you can go up to the entire collection, smaller subset of things here, but there's the execute script. So you can hit every device within the collection. All right, what else do we have here? There it is, install Mac client. So maybe this device back here with the IP address, we figure out, oh yeah, we forgot the admin account or port 22. We get our agent installed, or maybe it doesn't, right? And you need to get it installed. That's what this will help with. We'll be able to manually set up installing the agent against the device. Again, using maybe local accounts, or you can specify an AD account if the Mac is bound to AD. And then we can move that along with a couple more questions here. Install the Mac client, even if it's already installed. So maybe this is a unhealthy device. It shows up in Configuration Manager, but you're not able to manage it. So you can definitely just reinstall over the top, or let's be nice, right? Uninstall the existing Parallels Mac client before installation, and then go through the install process. And again, but as previously noted, if Macs are already bound to AD and they show up in Configuration Manager, this is another way you could go to that Mac collection where they had kind of been pushed off and orphaned to the side, and then you can right click on it and install our agent that way. All right, last couple of things here. What do we have? What do we have? Oh, wipe and lock, right? So this is Apple's way of wiping and locking a device, and kind of around the other way around, right? You probably want to lock it, get a lock code on it, and then wipe it. Wiping is going to take everything off that device. It'll be just bare metal at that point. But you establish a lock code. It's just a 6-digit arbitrary code. Get it in there. That means that you have to have that code to get back onto it. You can't use an old password. You can't use a file vault key. So you do have to have that lock code. We keep that per device. I'm just going to do a right click on the device again and go to properties. And we build out a couple of new tabs here. There's the wipe and lock. I don't have a lock status here because I didn't need to lock this device, haven't done that yet, but it would show up here. So you would be able to pull that back. You could click on that unlock code, copy to clipboard, print it off, maybe hand it to a help desk tech who has chain of custody, and then they can do an unlock of the device and maybe put a new operating system onto it. File vault, that's another one where you need to get a key, right, to get back onto it, or maybe to use it for decryption, encryption. So we have personal or institutional key schemes, and we escrow the keys within Configuration Manager. So it's not another database, or you don't have to keep spreadsheets. So once we do encrypt a Mac, then we can escrow those keys. Again, copy to clipboard, print it off, hand it to a help desk tech, maybe somebody that does BitLocker, right? Keep it within that chain of custody. All right, while we're here, let's look at this deployment. These are things that have been delivered to the Mac through automation of Configuration Manager, either a package or an application, software updates, so patching we can see here, variables, a lot of things will show up here. Basically anything that you deploy to a Mac, you can see on this screen. And then the good old general tab. I mean, you see this all the time on the Windows side of things, when and where, things were connected to. There's our Parallels Mac agent version. Let's see what else is in here. IPv4 and 6 are supported. So if you've moved to IPv6, that is no problem. We can take care of IPv4 and 6 devices. Let's see what else. There it is. There's our name, NetBIOS name, and then the Mac version. So this one is a 1015 device. All right. Oh, let's do this. This is one thing I forgot to do. I'm just getting this all set up. So we can add in, where'd you go? Operating system. Yeah, that's always nice to see. So let's tighten this up a little bit, actually. Let's get rid of that one. I'll just tighten it up. There we go. And there we go. Yeah, so then you get to see operating systems. After a while, right, you go, wow, why do we have so many and why are we supporting so many, right? Let's standardize, right? So this will help you. Again, we take that inventory, put it into your Sitecode DB, it just gets pulled back here. All right, let's go to start and where am I at? Oh, I'm on the collection, that won't work. All right. Start and Resource Explorer. We've already done a full inventory on this device. So underneath hardware, we can see computer information. So we get the name, we get a serial number in here. Kind of nice to do a double click on there and you get this nice little page. See operating system information. This is a virtual machine. So Parallels 16.1 is referring to Parallels virtual machine software for the Mac version 16.1. And we do hardware as well, right? But I am mobile today and not at home with my full lab. So I'm working off of my MacBook Pro with virtual machines. So there you go. We can do this anywhere we need to. All right, so that's that one. Let's take a look here at File Vault. Now I don't have anything File Vault enabled, and that tells me so right here. Unknown, not enabled. That is the disk I could encrypt, but this is like the 30,000 foot look. You just need to know, do we have disk encryption or not, right? So this will give you a way to reach out and see that, right? You can't walk out and see every device. So this gives you a console view into what that looks like. Installed applications, everything inventoried off the Mac is going to show up here. So that's really nice to see. Again, this gives you that console level look for things that, we just can't be everywhere doing everything, right? And so this gives you a way to see and be where you need to be to take care of your endpoints. This one's really nice, login profile. Who's logged in to the device. So we've got, I've got a root user. There's an administrative account. So this is definitely not a user device. This is more of an administrative device. And then we get log on, log off time. So we can see how many, dates and times, and then we can also see number of logins. So if you need to get some metrics on this device, you can go here to see who is logging in. All right, and then down below we get a pretty rich history of everything that is above here. So if we clicked in an area up on top, we can go down below and do the same thing to get system information. And I just got this virtual machine spun up yesterday, actually earlier this morning. So you can definitely get about 3 months, I think, worth of collected history. So if you need to go back in time to see what system information or installed applications, you'll get a 3-month look to see maybe somebody removed something, they deleted it, any new applications or packages that were delivered, those will all show up here. So great way to see what's happening now or historically. All right, I think that may be it. We did properties, we did that, we did that. Okay, yeah, I think we're good here. So that's a collection look. Again, if you do have questions, comments, concerns, utilize the QA or chat window, and I'll get to those towards the very end. Let's get down to the compliance settings. This is where we're going to get a Mac into a proper endpoint management status, right? So that's usually the thing, right? A Mac is a black box. What is on that device? And even if we could walk out there, a Mac is such a different beast. Excuse me 1 minute here. Thank you. Getting parched. So having the ability to put a Mac into a compliant state is usually the first and only way a Mac will be allowed onto the enterprise, right? If you can't secure it, if you can't satisfy the security team, the networking team, um, it's probably not going to happen, right? So this is the way that we can give a Mac a security posture, a repeatable, enforced discovery remediation process that will keep this Mac always in check, right? So I've got some baselines. I think I've got one in here for Mac policy, and then I built a just one of these is mine. This other one I inherited with this sandbox environment. I think this sets up basic compliance settings for the agent, right? And this one is for, I want to block pref panes. I don't want users going into the preference pane area like control panel and setting or removing configurations, right? I don't want to have my help desk team going out there trying to figure out what somebody did, right? I just want the policy in place that will enforce a management perspective that we just take for granted on the Windows side, but for some reason, Mac people think they can do whatever they want to, right? So this will give us a pause, we'll get the management that we need. So let's take a look at this. We're going to edit this configuration profile, but just to start off, let's go that direction. Then you can kind of see how we can build these and the tools that are needed. So there's macOS, iOS configuration profile. We do both, right? iOS is the phone, iPad OS, right, for a tablet, and then also Mac devices can all happen here. You can create these configuration profiles with this capability. So right now we're going to use MDM. Let's do an edit, a little blip there, and we should get our iMazing profile editor. So this is an executable, an EXE that we're launching out of Configuration Manager. Everything on the side here, these nice little flat icons, these are Apple mobile config files, policy profiles that we can deliver to manage Mac endpoints. So think of this as the group policy area. So if you were to go out to Apple and look at their specifications for what makes a mobile config file, there's libraries of all kinds of XML that you would have to build. This gets you out of having to be a code jockey to create policy, right? So everything in here is fully blessed for Big Sur on down, right? And then some of these will have a delineation. They'll say this is for Catalina only, or this one's for Mojave only, or right? So you may see some notes within here. So this is how I built my policy to block the App Store. So if we were to scroll back this way, let's see here. Maybe not. Let's see, is it up here? No. There's restrictions. You probably saw it as I slid past here. There's some Active Directory stuff. Oh, there it is, App Store right there. You were probably yelling at me, Danny. All right, so there's add a configuration payload. All right, so let's require an admin to do an install, right? If we can move people out of the administrative profile and make them a standard user, just like we would any Windows user, then they will have rights to do things on the Mac, but not everything, right? There's some things, folks should just not have rights to do. So why do they need to go to the App Store? If we can deliver an app and a package, a policy, patch the device, we can deliver everything to that endpoint that they need to do their best work. So we can just outright block the App Store. There's no need to go out there, right? So these are the different settings for the App Store that we could pull into play, and that's what I utilized. So if I were to go ahead and say okay with this one item there, it brings back in all of the XML behind those radio buttons. That's the stuff you didn't have to do, including require, it's a restrict store, require admin to install. True. So now this is ready. I need to put a name, description. I would also go with system, and I would also use MDM to fully enforce that. So then I would, I'd be able to put this into play, and I already have. So that's what my block pref panes is there for. Now that's been put into a baseline. Now, so I could have multiple policies there, right? Multiple configuration items. I could be blacklisting software. I could be setting let's see, password protected login with a login box and a password, not a soccer ball, right? Icon. You could set up a screensaver password. Those are really low hanging fruit, but there's many other security settings within that editor that you may want to put in place and put inside of your baseline, right? A baseline gets thrown at a collection. Every valuation condition or policy then gets applied. So I only have my block pref panes in there. But again, this could be filled with many to satisfy your security needs. And basically what I tell a lot of folks is get with your security team, networking team, desktop team. What are you doing for Windows devices? How looking at that editor, you can do that. You can take equivalent policy and add it to the Mac, and then it will go into a policy cycle through those baselines, evaluated every time Configuration Manager does an evaluation against the collection. So there you have it. Now you can say yes. A lot of times people ask for Macs and it's a no because you you don't have a way to fully manage those endpoints, those Mac endpoints. Now you can do that. Right. So that's a configuration item in a baseline. If we go back up here to configuration items, not only can we do policy like that, we can set up file vault. Give it a name, description, and then decide, do we want personal? That's the randomized per device key, or we can have one key. I call it the Lord of the Rings, one key to rule them all. In the institutional, you can get onto any Mac with that one key. So kind of dicey, right? I think I like the personal better because it's a one-off randomized per device key. So anyway, click a radio button, give it a name description. The institutional key requires a little bit more than the radio button, right? Use the drop down. My radio button there is, yeah, it's doing a little bit of, yeah, a little bit of lockup there. Anyway, underneath the institutional, there we go. We can browse out. What we're browsing for is something you've already built, a .cer file. When you go to Keychain, um, through this process, you will first go to command line and type in a file vault command. It'll build a policy that goes into the keychain. We bring out the .cer for the file vault policy out of the keychain, and then we can point to it here for the file name and then bring it in. For visibility here, then we can deploy this out. So pretty easy. It's like 6 steps in our administrative guide, and it tells you how to build that institutional one. Personal, don't have to do anything except for give it a name and a description and click that radio button. So once we deploy this against the collection, maybe this is in your baseline as well, the Mac user will attempt to log in and they'll be presented with a pop-up that please encrypt. They get a yes or a no. If they say no, it bounces them back to the login. They have to encrypt their device in order to log into the device. And then it'll go through the encryption process with another screen, letting them know that is now encrypting the Mac. You can proceed with whatever work you want to do, press OK to continue. And in the background, it'll do the full encryption. And then we get the key, right? We can put that actually automates itself into per device property area as we saw. This also goes into we add a second database near your Sitecode DB because we're full partners with Microsoft, part of the third-party program for plugins. When we plug into Configuration Manager, we are Mac Management for Configuration Manager. That allows us to utilize your Sitecode DB, Active Directory, all the infrastructure that Configuration Manager needs, including allowing us to build a second DB, an enterprise DB, without any extra cost to you. Microsoft allows that because we are already building ourselves into Configuration Manager. So there's no cost for that. So the File Vault, Wipe and Lock, DEP, MDM, Volume Purchase Program, all that information goes into that second database because there's no table structure for it in your Sitecode DB. We don't want to break schema, so we put it into that other database so that you can fully open and see everything, all the historical keys for File Vault, where it is now, maybe where it has been, all the MDM information, everything is there for that really Mac specific stuff. All right, so that's the policy part of things. Let's take a look at apps and packages under software library. We do them both. We utilize the same create application wizard. We also create a package wizard. The thing with packages, you know this as SCCM folks, if you've got packagers, application administrators, packages are kind of brain dead. Deploy them with admin rights or user context. The user sees it pop up. We can also use the quiet switch with the administrative context, so it doesn't pop up, it just installs. We can take a DMG, PKG, ISO, the native installer types, right? So if we browse out, it's going to ask, where is it? And then we can finish that up next, and then we can deploy it again with admin context, user context, or with the quiet switch, so it doesn't even show up. Now, applications take a little bit more, and it's a good direction that Microsoft went, because applications on the Windows side have detection methods, right? You need to know, can I install this? Is it the new version, the old version? So it's got logic with it. So Microsoft built a utility called CMAppUtil. That gives us the ability to add a wrapper around a native Apple installer to give it detection methods. Now, not only can we do Mac OS, we can also do volume purchase program from Mac OS, or this is for iOS. So we've got 3 different areas here. So if we were to browse out, we're not going to find the DMG, PKG type of extensions. We're going to see the CMac. That's where we've run this little utility on a Mac and wrap the application with those detection methods. And then I've got one here. There you go. It's a .app CMac. So now this is ready to bring in and pass this along with the same wizard, right? It's not a different wizard. It's the same one you use for working on the Windows side of things for applications. Now, I think we can go to a Mac here and take a look at that. Let's expand that out here. So Catalina, let's let that flip here. It's kind of out of skew here. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Let's see if we actually deliver it. There we go. There's WinZip. This is our application portal. I made this available, right? It's not mandatory, it's available. So it shows up here for us to be able to present to the end user. They can go, yeah, I need to go to the Corel, I want to see, maybe there's some, different Corel titles there, or maybe, it's just underneath archive, right? You could have other compression utilities in there. They could pick whatever one they wanted, right? So you could have a Microsoft folder, a utility folder, web folder, a browser folder, whatever it is. You can put those available applications, and you notice over here we get an install button that allows the end user to do self-installs. The admin right is carried with the application install. They don't have to be an admin. And it's nice, right? They don't have to request further credentials to do this install. So get them the standard user and don't let them have those administrative rights, because the app can take care of itself. It won't need that. So great place. You can put all your applications here that you want to give over to self-install. We can also bring in non-OSD task sequences. apps and packages, policy, mobile config files, variables. A lot of things can be added at this point into the application portal. And it's just a part of our agent delivery. So it'll show up here on the device. So let's go take a look. Excuse me. I think I need another drink of water here. Thank you for that indulgence. So there's our agent and gives us dates and times when where we connected. There's our URL to the proxy, which is on your site server. There's your site code, my site code. There's the version of our agent. And then we've got ways to refresh, see if there's any new content that can be added. We can push up any inventory information. Maybe I just installed something without using Configuration Manager. And maybe I was an admin on this Mac, right? An admin profile, and do you no longer own it? That user does as an admin, right? Maybe they've installed some stuff and, excuse me, help desk is wanting to get that into inventory. You can do that. Excuse me, one more treat. Sorry about that, folks. All right, so that's what our agent looks like there. Okay, that's the Mac, and that's what that looks like. Nope, not the demo. Let's get back into Configuration Manager. There we go. One more thing here, and then we're done. I see we're at the top of the hour, so just one more thing with software updates. Go to all software updates. We're going to synchronize in everything in the entire world here. This has got Microsoft and I think maybe some Mac titles, hopefully. Let's go down here and get the vendor sort. So you can see, oh, there we go. Yep, so now we've got Apple in here. Let's see if we have any big cert. Okay, hasn't synchronized in yet. As I mentioned, I'm just getting my lab set up. Let's see, 10.14, I think that's Mojave. There we go. Yep, there's some Mojave patches. We'll just utilize that one. Let's see, well, maybe let's try to see some Catalina content. There we go. All right, so let's see, we get up to about 10.15.5. Usually you see 10.15 or .6, maybe a .7. So you know that's about the end of the run for patching Macs before the new operating system comes out. So let's say this is the one that I need. Well, how would I know that I needed this one, right? If there's, all these different patches, we would have the same compliance here. Compliant, required, not required, unknown. Then we get the nice little pie chart there. So we would have required over here. Maybe if this was a required update, then we would know, yes, this is what we need to patch, right? That takes the guesswork out of, all these different potential patches. Well, here's what we do. Create a software update group. We can use ADRs, automated deployment rules. Those can be brought to bear as well. So then we can add this against a collection, download it, and then you can choose, what you want to patch, when you want to patch it. It's not Patch Tuesday. You're not going to have that cadence every week to see if there's something new. Apple doesn't update that often. So operating system updates, go through a couple of betas. That could be over a month and a half, right? And then they'll release something. There could be a security update or maybe an application update. We are centric to Apple patching. So we're not a third-party patcher. We simply bring in their catalogs that you can then select based off of required or installed or percent compliant, whatever it is there. And then you can make the choice to be able to patch your Mac devices. It's that simple for doing patching. Okay, I think we are down to the wire here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and take a look at, let's see, QA window. Well, first I'll start in the chat, then we'll take a look at the QA window. Awesome, folks. Thank you so much for staying on here. Okay. Is it possible to deploy a complete new version of operating system to Mac OS? And what about new software to deploy, update existing? Yeah, we kind of just covered application package updating process, right? So, if it is an application with detection methods, right? You can put that new version in and it will, with detection methods, be able to tell new version, old version, same version, right? So then it will just, it'll either update it or it'll bypass it, right? So you can kind of take some of the guesswork out of there with that process. Um, Really, buying a Mac has an operating system on it that's the most current operating system, and then the next thing is to start patching it to keep it within its, you know, security patches and OS patches, and that's what the sup role will do for you. So um, deploying a brand new Mac and its operating system is where you start. Take it out of the box, get it onto the network, and then you can start patching it and adding other policy to it. When it comes to a new operating system, that's the part where DEP becomes more important. And this is kind of the process in or out of DEP, internet recovery. Internet recovery will pull down a new operating system, nice new clean one. And then once again, as it hits a collection or uses the DEP process, you get the automation of putting policy back onto it, and then also being able to patch it once it hits a collection. So collections and DEP are key to this process, to keeping a Mac up to date, patched, applications being added to it or being updated to it. So that's probably the best way forward there. Is it possible to deploy software updates to macOS using Cloud Management Gateway? No, Cloud Management Gateway is a closed API, so it's not open. That's why we use the IBCM process for any external devices. So that gets us the ability to patch it, update it, deliver an app, a package, enforce it with policy. Is there anything to know how the deployments are running? Percentage Mac OS installed. So yeah. So yeah, definitely. There are compliance reports. I mean, those are the ones that are built into Configuration Manager. So within the software update area, you can definitely see percentage compliant. And again, go back to reporting and reports. You can get compliance reports. So you can see what that looks like. So it's not a black hole. You do get percentages. Could you confirm we can install this server on premise and use it locally only? Also, can we link an ABM account? Let's see here. So yeah, so this is an on-premise installation. We take care of Macs first on-prem, but then if you link it and configure the IBCM MDM piece of it, then we can fully manage off-prem Macs. But we are an on-prem solution for Configuration Manager endpoint management. So that's our perspective there. ABM account. I'm sorry, I am just having a brain issue here with ABM accounts. So maybe you can give me a little bit more there. Is there any way to know once you have just deployed something into a client, how the deployment runs, if properly, or error logs? Well, yeah, you can definitely use any of the configuration manager logs. We also have Parallels Mac management logs at the server level, and then we also have logs on the Mac. So we can definitely do that. But then again, if there's some upper level things you need to see through reports, you can definitely utilize those for compliance. So you can see, yeah, did this deploy properly? But yeah, we definitely have logs on both sides, at the server level and then also at the Mac. It's a PMA PMA log, I think it is. And it's transactional. So it's a live running log that you can see everything that happens. There'll be package IDs that correlate to package IDs back in Configuration Manager. So you can see all that stuff. Let's see what else. That's the chat window. I think maybe some folks have put some into the QA window. Oh, hey, thanks for that, James. And that's really a good kind of a good thing to contemplate at this point. Your comment about Jamf, because people ask that all the time. How do you compare with Jamf? Well, let's really think about where you're at, right? If you're a full Windows shop, you're managing Windows endpoint, trying to figure out what to do with a Mac, right? So you're 95, 98%, Windows and a smattering percentage of something else. Now, if you were a Mac shop, you would be 98% Mac, and the oddball person would be the Windows person that came up to the IT, window and said, "Yeah, I'm having some problems with my Windows operating system on my Lenovo," and they would go, "What? How did you get that? We're a Mac shop. We don't even. How did you give me that?" And they take it away from you, crying. And so really think about that. What's your focus? What are you needing to do? And usually that boils down to, 5, 6 different things that need to take place: deploying apps, packages, policy, patching, reporting, and then the usefulness of the MDM, which is not just useful, it's required now, right? So all that can be enforced in the same way that just about any other vendor that Manage a Mac does, except for you don't have to go to another console. You can use Configuration Manager where we tie it. So really think about that. Where do you want to manage endpoints? And if you're not wanting to kind of flip the cart for support and infrastructure, that's what we're going to give you the ability to do, just to keep moving forward with your administrators in your console. Yeah, we definitely do iPad OS, iOS, Mac OS, MDM, DEP, volume purchase program. If we never said Configuration Manager, everything that I just listed would be on everybody else's, console-based Mac management on an MDM outside of Configuration Manager. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Apple Business Manager, ABM. Yeah, yeah, and School Manager as well. So we have people customers that had Apple School Manager. They stood up our MDM that transitioned their Macs into Configuration Manager. So we don't necessarily have any configurations or links. It just was kind of a happenstance that once they got our MDM set up, there was a transition point. So yeah, we can pull in content from it and coexist with Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager, but we don't have per se, configurations for it. All right. Hey, thanks. Appreciate all those questions there. I think I got. Let me take one more spin here, folks, and I think we're done. Yeah, okay. One last little bit. We're gonna roll you over into the Parallels website, and we're kind of sneaky about that. So all kinds of stuff to download there. Yeah, you can see our documentation. Um, schedule. Maybe you want to bring your whole team into a demo. We can definitely set that up for you if you want to do a POC. Definitely eager to assist any way we can. My contact information is down there at the bottom. If you'd like to get back in touch with me, we can get you in touch with sales executives if you don't already know who that is for your territory, and then take next steps to see if maybe this is the way you'd like to manage your Mac endpoints without blowing up your infrastructure, right? We just want to move forward with kind of the methodologies that you're already using for Windows endpoints and just kind of keep that going along. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the time and hanging out with me today. You've got other things to do, and I really appreciate the time. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.